Hello, good evening, and welcome to Real Estate with Bimpe. My name is Adebimpe Ariola. I'm the real estate consultant that teaches you real estate investment lessons in simple English. It's called Simplified Real Estate Investment. Welcome. Today we're going to be discussing the risks of buying land or buying a house from government. The risks involved in buying real estate from government. Don't be deceived. There's no investment without risk, even when you're investing with the government. When you're buying stocks and bonds and even shares from the government, there are risks involved. So today we are discussing the risks involved in buying real estate from the government. Because people a lot of times believe that because you're buying from the government, it's absolutely free of risk. That's a lie that is going to get you into trouble if you're not careful. You're not going to like the outcome if you're not careful. Let's get right into it. Let me first of all give you a background into government land. Now, the Land Use Decree of 1976, which you have heard of, you must have heard of it if you've done small investigation, small research on real estate in Nigeria. You would have heard of the Land Use Decree 1976. That decree says that the governor is the technical owner of all the land within the state. That ownership is subject to those who had been in ownership of land before the decree came into force. You know, it will not be fair to say that suddenly the governor owns all the land in the state. Meanwhile, some people had owned their land before. They were doing their business, doing their thing before the law came into force. So the law recognized those people who owned the land before government came in. And the law says that, okay, those people are said to have deemed right of ownership over the land. They were recognized, provided that it remained their land. And anything that was not within the purview of such owners became, subject to the governor's ownership. Now, the Constitution also provides that the governor can take those lands from those families that owned it before the 1976 Constitution. The Constitution provides that there may be situations in which the governor wants to develop the states and he needs landmass to develop the state. If he wants to provide public amenities, if he wants to provide conducive living conditions for the citizenry, he will need to take space to build hospitals, to build schools, to build bridges, like we're saying, to do road expansions. He can take the land from those people, right? And it is called overriding public interest. It's in the interest of the public. So the governor takes the land from them, takes the land from us to do us a favor. That is it. So in that circumstance, listen to this clearly. If the owners of that land, the land was vacant land, there was no improvement on it, it means that they had no economic benefit on the land. Don't forget that Land Use Decree says the governor owns the land. So if governor wants to take the land back from the people who owned it before the decree came into force, he gets to take the land. But if there are improvements upon it, then he needs to compensate the people who owned the land for whatever they had done on the land. That is how come in a lot of areas, I can give too many instances, when the government takes the land and they were living there, it will relocate them to go and live somewhere else. That is compensation. But if there was nothing on the land and it was just vacant land when the government took it, and if the government took it for overriding public interest, then the family will get nothing. If the government took the land so that it can develop the state for the betterment of the people, and there was nothing on the land when the government took it, then the family that owns the land will not get compensation. You get compensation only for improvement on the land, not for the land. Do you get that? So assuming that there was no improvement on the land, we are going to buying real estate from the government. Follow me carefully. So assuming the government now takes the land from the people and says, we want to build a school for this locality. This locality doesn't have a secondary school. We want to build a secondary school. I had done one video where I was explaining to you that when government wants to build a health center 1 kilometer by 1 kilometer square, it can acquire 6 kilometer by 6 kilometer square because it acquires more than it needs. So imagine that it acquires maybe 15 kilometers square, that it wants to build a secondary school, and there was nothing on the land. The family knows that they won't get anything out of it, so they would fold their hands and accept their lot, right? But if the government takes that land, and the plan of the government is to build high rises, is to build high profile living quarters, that is not overriding public interest. Now, low cost housing, as we have in different states, as we have in Abuja, as we have in Lagos, low cost housing is overriding public interest. There are certain features that make the house qualify as low cost housing. That's not the focus of this conversation. Low cost housing is overriding public interest. Once it ceases to be low cost housing, it's not overriding public interest, right? Or once the government takes that land and begins to sell land at a premium to people who will build it for business purposes, it is no longer overriding public interest. I can give too many instances, but I cannot give them here. If it is taken from the family in the name of overriding public interest and sold, right, for purposes other than overriding public interest, then the family is entitled to compensation even though it was vacant land. Are you listening to me clearly? Even though it was vacant land, if it is not used for overriding public interest, the family is entitled to compensation. But imagine this scenario where the government acquires the land in the name of overriding public interest and then uses it for something that is not overriding public interest and then does not settle the family. What do you think will happen when the family begins to see that the land is being used for something other than what it was acquired for? This is the birth of some of the uprising we see among those we call Omonile, because I have had numerous conversations with them. They have told me some of their history, some of their encounters. I understand some of their disputes. I do not accept, but I understand where they are coming from. I'm better able to negotiate with them. I have some that I'm working on right now. So here is the thing. When you want to buy government land, or you want to buy a house from government, especially when you see that that house is not low cost, when you see that that house is not built for the average civil servant, when you see that that house is not going to be affordable by the market women, you know that it does not qualify as overriding public interest. Simply what you should do is to go and investigate to find out if the family was compensated. If the family was compensated, they sat down, they had a discussion, they were given either monetary compensation or land compensation in the right circumstances, because there are circumstances that qualify as compensation and circumstances that do not qualify as compensation. That's outside the purview of this video. Now, if the family was compensated under the right circumstances, then you know that you are most likely going to have a smooth sailing use of that land. But if it was otherwise, then you should be ready that at some time in the near or distant future, you will compensate the family. And that is just the truth. Because whether today, whether 10 years, whether 25 years, that family is coming back to get their compensation. So when they show up, please do not think that it is not their right what they are showing up for. Ask them the basis upon which they are coming to confront you. Before you lay them off and say they have no rights, they have no interests, which can lead to unending stories. Ask them that on what basis are they coming to confront you. You will know whether it's better to negotiate with them or to confront them. There are situations in which you confront them, there are situations in which you negotiate with them. But you need to ask and do your investigation and finding to know. These are part of the due diligence questions you need to ask. The due diligence investigations you need to find out when you want to buy land or buy developed property, buy developed real estate from the government. I hope you got something. If you did, please like this video, comment, and if you're not subscribed, please go ahead and subscribe right away. It's just right there at the bottom right side on the video. Please go ahead and subscribe and share with your friends and loved ones. Remember that I always say that real estate investments remain one of the juiciest forms of investment in Nigeria and the world over. Take care and bye-bye.